it has a lot to do with also the company being misunderstood. I mean, even to this day, I don't think most investors actually understand the SPAC investments. To me, the SPAC investments were genius, but a lot of people will argue, oh no, it was so stupid. The companies are going bankrupt. I mean, yeah, that is a shame, of course. But I mean, you got to look at the bigger picture. So I mentioned in the SEC filings, they stated their mission, right? They want to be the operational system for a whole industry, and they're listing a lot of industries. So just we had around 21, 20 SPACs. I have a whole sheet tracking each sale of the equity and the revenues. I don't know if you've seen it on my Twitter.
I think, yeah, your sheets are very good. Your charts are amazing. So it's really,
so
Amir's Twitter's in the description for those who want to follow just for Palantir content. It's absolutely amazing in terms of the charts.
So let's just say there are 21 SPACs at the peak, 22 that are public. Then they have some private investments, but let's not count those. They invested around 420 million in total. And how many offerings does Palantir have? Would you guess? I'm not talking about platforms. I'm talking about products.
Yeah, I don't know the exact number.
There's 28 currently on their website.
Yep.
There's 21 SPACs. And just looking at it, what does Carp always say? About Palantir, they're on the front lines, right?
Right.
So I actually looked into each one of these SPACs, their industry, what they do, and then I listed on the same sheet all the offerings, and then I started to connect the dots. Okay, where is this R&D going into? How do you put the price on what that R&D is worth? Frontline R&D. I can't do that. I don't think most people can do that. But then you have the argument, well, they just sunk 420 million into this. Yes, but it was near risk-free, a double return on the money just in revenues.
Right.
Obviously, we're not there yet because several SPACs went bankrupt, but they will still break even at this rate. I've been tracking this. So at most, they were down 57.7% of their whole investment. The equity has been down 90% plus. The equity is in the toilet. But actually, if you add back the revenues they've been getting each quarter, they're actually only down about 35% on their whole investment. And they are on track to actually recoup the whole investment. And then basically the R&D was for free, right? So, I mean, you have to really dig deep into these things. And the more misunderstood data points I see, the more confident I get in Palantir, if that makes sense. So the more asymmetries I see, yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. I want to stick on the SPACs for a second. So you believe that being down 35% for the R&D is a successful trade-off. It's an important trade-off, especially for a company that's trying to be innovative, for a company that's not trying to acquire to get the technology, but trying to be on the front lines. My question to you is the critics, especially, our good friend from the Bear Cave, that said the SPACs was a disaster. It adds to the chaos of the company. And specifically for this reason, buying revenue from people you're investing in is not that it's unethical. It's just it's weird. What is your response to that from a business perspective?
I would say it's not weird, and it's happening across a lot of companies. And actually, if you would put it this way, would you rather have them spend 420 million and not get anything? Because just looking at the contracted revenues from this, it's about a double. Around at the peak 780 million, they put in 420. That's just the base case. And then you have, okay, what if the equity actually did well? What if the equity didn't tank 97%? It would have been an outsized return, and they would have looked like geniuses, right?
Right.
So I don't see the bear case. What I would say that a lot of other people have mentioned as well is, well, how did they go about choosing these companies? Because some of the companies are truly well, it makes you scratch your head, right?
Yeah.
Bird,
Faraday
for example, Box, Faraday. No, I can get Faraday futures because they have the whole EV operating system platform actually operational right now, and I would guess that Faraday was a huge part of that. And the most genius thing here is that they don't have to hold the equity to get the revenues.
Right.
They have sold out of Faraday Future. Their whole equity stake in Faraday, as well as a lot of different SPACs, they've actually sold out of completely.
But they took a big loss on Faraday, I'm assuming, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
They took a big loss across everything, more or less. But
they don't have to hold it to bankruptcy, basically, is what you're saying. Yeah.
No. And as long as the company stays afloat, so basically we saw Wejo try to dilute just everything to stay alive. That's what you want to see as a Palantir investor, because that means the Wejo revenue will continue to trickle in. But then you start to ask yourself, in terms of SPACs, I actually have the sheet here. So if we look the past quarter, Q1 2023, each SPAC brought in 2.8 million of revenue, so about 33.4 million total across 12 SPACs. At the peak, we were at 22 SPACs, so 33.4. And what was the total revenue? Like 550 million or somewhere around that. I don't know.
525.
Yeah. Okay. So that's close to 10% of the revenue just from 12 SPACs.
Right.
I mean, how do you make a bear case around that? And then we're not even talking about fulfilling the whole mission, which is to be on the front lines, like battle tested software, just developing these platforms to take over a whole industry. I think it's actually genius the way they did it. The only setback is actually the companies they chose, which is unfortunate in some cases. Some companies are doing well, better, are recovering. Also, if we didn't get the whole 2022 major recession, because most of these investments were made in 2021, what would have this looked like? Would have it been such a bear case? And I think most people don't look at it that way. They just see, oh, the equity is down 97%. This is so stupid. Like, the more asymmetries like that I can spot, the more confident I feel that I have an edge on the market in terms of Palantir. And it just adds to my confidence to actually go 100% into Palantir. I'm not 100% now, but I was. And one of the reasons or reasonings behind that is just spotting these things and feeling confident in the company.
Yeah, I mean, look, I agree a lot. I think that it's so interesting to talk about this because you're even opening my mind up to thinking of the SPACs in a little bit of a different way. And these asymmetries, the more you research the company, you know, the more it's like, damn, like they're doing this, that's different. They're doing this, that's different. One of the only companies that's actually helping Ukraine, that's a real different thing. And it adds so much to a bull thesis. In particular, I think Lilium just signed a deal in China. That might be a big player in the eVTOL race. Sarcos Robotics is still doing okay. Tritium Charging got some of that money from Biden's 7.5 billion EV in the infrastructure bill subsidies, and they opened up a factory in Tennessee. So I agree. Some of the companies they picked are questionable, but the fact that they actually tried to do this, and by the way, Google and Salesforce do this too, right? They have a venture arm. It's just that Google can lose 20 million like it's nothing, right? Palantir at this point can't really lose that money as graciously, but you've got to. What'd you say?
They won't lose this money,
right?
They will recoup every dollar spent. I'm confident in that, unless we see like 10 bankruptcies of the remaining 12 SPACs next quarter, but they're on track to recoup everything. Yeah.
Right. And you got to take these bets, right? I mean, it's a venture capital type of model, but the good thing about this is, you know, Google puts in 5 million into a company. If they take off, they take off. If they don't, they don't. In this case, Palantir gives you 10, 15 million, but you have to give a little bit of that back. And you're not just giving that back in some quid pro quo. You're giving that back because you're using their software to enhance your business, and they're trusting you with their software because, you know, their software is very selective who they give it to be able to build something innovative. So I agree. Especially if they break even on this or they turn a profit, this really wasn't the worst thing in the world, given the R&D, you know, in the eVTOL space, for example, that they've been able to get from it.
Yeah, and do you think if these companies felt slighted by Palantir in any way, that they would go out in public and praise their partnership with Palantir? I mean, how many times have we seen the Wejo CEO talk about Palantir in a very positive light? And for example, Lilium, as you mentioned, like they have they present on at CES together, for example. And I haven't tracked each SPAC's story because I think it's largely a waste of time. For me, it was enough to understand which in an industry do they operate in, what do they do, and how could it benefit Palantir. I haven't followed like the day to day, but you see these things and you feel like, well, if it's so shady, why do these CEOs praise Palantir so much? I mean, obviously they're getting something valuable out of this as well.
Right.
And just going back, it felt so crazy, right? When I read the mission statement in the initial SEC filings about like this whole operating system platform. And I thought of the example. It was just one, like the educational system is due for an overhaul. Like you could improve a whole country's economy massively by just having a better educated population, right? It seems crazy. It seems so abstract. But then you look like, okay, what are they doing in Ukraine?
Right.
Similar to the SPACs, they gave them the software and they're initially for free in Ukraine. They're expecting to recoup a lot of that.